Hello and good day. This is Christopher MG from the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce Success School. We are here with a career panel on public safety. It's my pleasure to have three wonderful guests who are going to introduce themselves. I see Garrett is on my computer right now. Garrett, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Garrett Greathouse. I'm a firefighter with City of Bloomington. I've been with the City of Bloomington for 7 years now. I'm an engineer and the driver of Squad 1.
Driver Squad 1. All right, Allison, you're
Hi.
up next.
Great. Good morning. I'm Allison Moore. I work for Monroe County Government, and I am the Monroe County Emergency Management Director. I've been in the position for 4 years, and I serve all the towns in the city of Bloomington, as well as the entire county.
And then Sheriff Swain.
I'm Sheriff Brad Swain. I've been Monroe County Sheriff since 2015, and I've been with the Sheriff's Office 35 years this year. I started out in the jail and became a patrol officer for about 5 years and was a detective for 20 years and have been serving as sheriff until the end of my second term in a couple of years.
So I'll start with Sheriff Swain on some questions. A little
lifelong resident.
Oh, go ahead. Hey, let's go ahead and start with Sheriff Swain. Give us a little sense of life, your work life in the Sheriff's Office for 35 years now, as far as what the Sheriff's Office does in law enforcement. How is that different from a municipality, and kind of what led you to going into law enforcement?
Well, the Sheriff's Office in Indiana really has three different divisions. The law enforcement division, which covers primarily the unincorporated areas of the county, even though our jurisdiction falls within the county as well, or within any city. And I also serve the courts. So orders, warrants, tax collection, that's the civil division. So in a sense, the sheriff oversees three different divisions with a commander of each one. And so the day is spent just seeing how all those different divisions are operating. The jail potential for running the largest hotel and institution in the county has its challenges. I've always wanted to be in law enforcement since I was a child, and went to college later in life. Was lucky to come back home and get a job with the Sheriff's Office, where I've been since 1985.
Great. Now, Allison, emergency management. What is that? A lot of our viewers wouldn't even know what that is, and how do you work with some of these other, the county law enforcement, fire departments, etc.?
Sure. So when there is an actual disaster or something's actually happened, and we have some kind of, we use all of our normal daily operational equipment or manpower, that's when the emergency management department can step in and start to assist our public safety, as well as other partners in the community. It could be from helping set up shelters, helping get additional manpower for a large fire, helping with damage assessment, or getting teams together to help with damage assessment or debris management if a tornado would come through. But then you think, well, that's a great job. I want to have that job because you don't have to do anything unless something strikes or something happens. And that's actually not the case, because we're constantly making sure that all of our responders have all the proper training. We are making sure that we're bringing new and exciting training to the area so that everybody has the latest and greatest. And then we're also reviewing and updating and preparing plans on how we'll handle certain events. And that's a huge task that we work on during the daily operational period when things aren't stressful. Here lately with the pandemic, we've been in that emergency management mode of handling a disaster since March. We're just now starting to kind of get back into that groove of everyday life, as well as continuing to handle what our health department and what our hospitals and our health clinics and nursing homes and such need. And some of the things that we do when those disasters happen are we make requests through Homeland Security or the Indiana State Department of Health for additional resources and various things that they might need in order for them to continue to serve the public.
So Gary, you at the fire department, what sort of led you into that position, and what sort of training did you have, and what interests kind of said, oh, I'm going to be a firefighter?
Sure. So I started out as a medic in the Army in an infantry unit, and the whole emergency medicine side, pre-hospital medicine side of things just came natural to me, and I was a natural at it. So after the Army, I came back to Bloomington. And bounced around from different jobs, different industries, and just never found something was missing, right? And you get that camaraderie that I had with the military, that sense of excitement, that sense of service to your community, that was all fulfilled with a job in the fire industry. I started out as a part-time EMT in Owen County and joined a volunteer fire department in that area. Once I got to go through some of the training and education involved on the fire side of things, I was stuck. I was hooked. So it was just a natural fit for me. So.
Well, I have a nephew who's looking to join a fire department, and it's very competitive. And how much of having that paramedic background first helped, and what other things that kind of set you above a lot of the other applicants? Because I just was going through Tom Vogola about how the application process, which is to me crazy in itself, the tests and the levels and that commitment to a job. So give me a little sense of how you were able to sort of maneuver into the success that you've become.
Right. Again, so that emergency medicine background really helped out a lot. A military background is really favored in a career field, in any kind of first responder career, actually, whether it be police or a paramedic or fire department. But just a person with there's plenty of people that we've hired with zero experience. But as far as the education goes, to give you that foot in the door, so to speak, the military background, emergency medicine, fire service. There's a lot of Hoosier Hills folks that are starting to come around, and we're in the application process. It's just there's a certain kind of person that it takes. That certain a big thing is that that sense of service and that sense of community is the main thing. That's what's going to get you started, and then from there, the background and other things as far as education and emergency medicine and fire service.
Hey, Sheriff Swain, I have like a two-part question for you. You got involved in law enforcement. How did that come about? And then you're running for sheriff, an elected office where you're now managing a large department, and sort of the differences in just starting there in 1985 and then the last few years running a larger department.
Well, I got in law enforcement, I think, from a young age. I think there was a TV show called Adam 12, which was followed two Los Angeles police officers around. My wife had met one of the actors just a few years ago, and had a nice conversation with him. I wish I would have met him. And I think it was a tumultuous time, just like it is now, and you just had to make a decision which side of things you wanted to be on. And I had just had developed an interest in law enforcement early on. As far as running for office, I tell people that I had intended to be sheriff, or planned to be, probably since I started there, and had tried to develop my career with that goal in mind, also tempering with the reality that it might not happen. But it was a long process for me, and it was very interesting. I can say one thing to kind of enlighten some of the people, is that a county sheriff has no boss other than the people who voted him or her into office. So I don't have a mayor. Nobody appointed me. The people selected the sheriff, and it is designed that the sheriff has autonomy. We, the commissioners and council address making sure the jail is a healthy and safe place, and inmates are well cared for, and the county council provides the fiscal part of it. And they've always been wonderful to me during my time. But a county sheriff doesn't answer to anybody but the public. And I think that's a good thing, especially this day and age, as you see some things going on. Managing the office is, they always say, put good people in positions to do the job. And there's very few people whose ego will let them do that. But I tell my division commanders, my best thing to do is stay out of your way. And, just like when you're teaching a young person to drive, every now and you let them drive the car, but every now and then you may need to reach over and adjust that steering wheel, because where it ultimately goes is through whatever vision the sheriff may have. So my days are just making sure we're on track, and that the needs of the public and my employees are met.
So Sheriff, you have these various divisions. Kind of give me give and the viewers themselves sort of a sense of some of the challenges you have faced with them. I know I've taken a tour of the county jail, and I know that's probably a facility that could need some upgrades. But anything else, sort of the challenges of law enforcement, which is you mentioned that the Adam show, that that's a lot of the glory of law enforcement, but kind of give us a little sense of the other side of that as well.
The other side is that you have to, a lot of my job is risk mitigation and reducing the chance for lawsuits. Body worn cameras are a tremendous asset. They are expensive, but one lawsuit settlement that's been avoided will pay for it. The same thing with the jail. We want to do things to prevent lawsuits. Right now, we are under an agreement with the Civil Liberties Union on jail population size. There's a major criminal justice study near completion. Part of that conversation is whether or not to build a new jail. I started out as an employee for the new jail. I worked in the previous jail, which was the big barred doors and cells with the big old key, and we moved in less than 3 hours into a facility. When we moved into the new jail, that was all electronic and a lot of remote controls and computers. So we moved from a jail from blueprints in the 1800s into a modern facility. We are close to having to build a new jail now. I don't know, it still will be a few years down the road, but that's just a reality we have. With COVID on the civil side, we'll be addressing eviction challenges and things that have been put on delay. Foreclosures of homes, people not paying for taxes who have businesses. So there are a lot of challenges even there with the present day.
And these are people sometimes I'd imagine. I mean, as a public official, I mean, this is your community.
Yeah, then of course, growing up here in Monroe County, that as long as you do your job professionally, then people understand that you're just doing the job that you were given. But it can be a challenge at times, and we try and help everybody that, we have people worried because they are way back in paying taxes, and we try and help solve problems as much as we can for them.
I see you're on there. Garrett, give us a sense of that problem solving and what you do with the fire department on a day-to-day basis that people might not know about, and whether and then we can go from there.
Sure. So, of course, we a firefighter does the typical things. We'll put out a house fire. We'll put out trash fires and things like that. We respond on car accidents, but also we do most of our calls. 80% of our runs are EMS and emergency medicine. So since we're strategically placed around the city, we have 5 different stations. A lot of times we beat the ambulance to a scene and start that emergency care before they get there, and then they transport to the hospital. But there's kind of an understanding that when someone calls 911 and they don't exactly need police, they don't exactly need an ambulance, they just call the fire department. So whether it's a weird smell or anything else, we get the call for that. So we wear many different hats. But the sheriff hit on a good point that a lot of what we do as first responders is risk mitigation and keeping ourselves safe first, and then also protecting people and preserving property.
Which I imagine, and we'll get into this probably with everybody, is how do you make those decisions in high risk situations that you have to make very quickly, Garrett? Give us a little sense of that.
That's right. So, it's called cyclic thinking. And, when you're on a scene, you immediately want to size up all the information you got coming in. And that size up starts as soon as we get the call or as soon as we're driving into work that morning. If it's a morning like today, you got rainy and wet road conditions. So that could cause issues with responding, or that could cause a high volume of motor vehicle accidents. So we might be busy that day. But that size up starts, almost immediately, and it's always going on. And then you get the 911 information from the dispatcher. So you're kind of playing in your head what to expect and what you might see and what you're going to need, what kind of equipment you're going to need to respond properly. And then while you're there on scene, the scene is always changing. So, you implement one thing. So say you put water on the fire to put the fire out. Well, that may cause a visibility issue. Say it's a car fire, we put water on the fire. There's a lot of smoke that comes up, a lot of steam when we put water on the fire, and then that causes visibility issues for oncoming traffic. And then you got to make sure everybody's wearing their safety vests while working out in traffic. So it's cyclic thinking. The scene is always changing, and you always got to adapt to that and just try to make the best decision as soon as you can, and then then adapt to whatever changes occur.
Now, Allison, let's get a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of your position. What kind of led you to emergency management, which is, again, like one of those positions that I think a lot of our viewers didn't know existed, right?
Sure. I graduated from Indiana University with actually more social work background, and started on a non-for-profit coalition right out of college. And one of the individuals that was on that same coalition with me, a colleague, was the emergency preparedness coordinator at the local health department. And I became really interested in that position, and had an interest in that position. I come from a fire family, and so I have that emergency responder background and that passion that's just kind of always been driven in me, and wasn't actually aware of the emergency management field until I ran into this colleague. She happened to move and that position became open, and I hopped right into it, really with no experience or background, and really just started learning more about the position as I was in it. It is a position that every county in the state of Indiana has. It's a requirement from the state of Indiana that every person or every county have at least one staff member in the emergency management field. But it's a very much growing field, and so now you'll see that hospitals normally will have a preparedness coordinator or an emergency management director. Nursing homes will often have this position, and a lot of times they'll tie that to that risk prevention coordinator as well, in smaller facilities such as nursing homes. But they do in fact have that emergency management director in various different healthcare fields. And so from there, at the health department, I just started learning that not only do they have an emergency management director, but the health department has one, the hospitals have one. And so it just became something I fell in love with. And over time, I fell into the local head emergency management position. And here I am.
One of the things I think of when I think of emergencies here is flooding. And what goes into, say, flood? I think we had a big flood right before I moved here in Monroe County. I think that was around, was it 2008? What goes into, say, flood planning? Is that something you would do?
Yes. So in preparing for the floods, we would have floodplains prepared, making sure our first responders know our high areas. Like Sheriff Swain said, he's been here his entire life, so he knows there are certain roads that are just not passable in this county. There are several. We have about 27 roads that when it gets flash flooding, we know they're going to flood, and they're probably going to be flooded for a long time. One of the things we do is we take those lists. We work with our county highway and our city and town street departments. We gather those lists of roads that are flooded. We make sure that dispatch is aware, so that if Garrett or Sheriff Swain's department gets calls to certain areas, then they can let them know in the dispatch center, hey, we're going this way, but just so you know, this road and this road and this road are closed, and you will need an alternate route. So that's one of the things that we are tasked with. And then on the other side, if you have flooding and you're an individual or a resident, then we work with you to make sure you have all the proper paperwork in place. And that way, if FEMA reimbursement is an option, then our office can help assist you in getting those FEMA reimbursement dollars back.
You mentioned a lot of this is planning, and you're working with a lot of different organizations, a lot of different individuals. And what makes you good at that, in that you're kind of bringing different parties together to come up with a plan? And what does that take ultimately?
Sure. It takes ultimately the biggest thing that it takes is collaboration amongst partners. We're constantly meeting with our fire chiefs and with our other partners in the community, and talking about different plans, different procedures, getting different input. We don't always agree on what's the best methods for how we would handle, say, a flood, for example, or any disaster, or any plan or procedure that we have in place. And so it's our responsibility in the emergency management office to listen to the other experts in the area and then come to an agreement. We're just now starting the planning process for a mitigation plan. It's a plan that we have to have in place and have to have updated every 5 years at the county. And we have a list of all of our different partners that will play a role in the planning of that plan. It will not just be here's the plan, sign it and send it on. We will not have to have that plan updated until 2023, but we have just begun the beginning stages of making that plan, starting that process to have that plan updated. So there'll be numerous meetings with numerous partners between now, here in 2020, over the next 3 years to have that plan implemented.
Patience and perseverance, I think, come to mind, the 2 Ps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just a lot of give and take, because there's a lot of opinions that go into it, and a lot of experts that have wonderful opinions that need to be valued. And so it just takes a group of people being professional and collaborating together to find the best ways to serve our community.
And probably, as Sheriff Swain mentioned, a couple egos along the way.
Absolutely. Yes. experts as well.
Experts, yes, experts. So, Sheriff Swain, give us a little bit of any misconceptions we have about the sheriff's office and how it looks different from, say, 1985 or even 1995 or 2005 to where we are here in 2020.
Well, I think it is a lot more professional. I had initiated a physical fitness program in which twice a year, as soon as my obstacle course is done, that officers have to meet Indiana Law Enforcement Academy exit standards or entry standards. Are slightly different. So I think we look a lot better. We have a lot better financial support. Our equipment is better. Of course, we have computers in our cars. I started out with a typewriter and the carbon paper for writing reports, and now so much is done electronically. When I was a detective, I got as much done sitting at my desk with my computer as out in the field investigating. We have a lot more deputies. When I started out in the jail,
Sheriff?
the same size jail with 28 full staff, and now so the amount of, yes.
Oh, yeah, you were just coming
yeah.
a little.
There we go. Let me take the audio.
There we go.
Yeah. So, and the misconceptions are, I can talk about social issues just briefly is, and I've talked with people at the city of Bloomington, when people have complaints with law enforcement in general here and they're talking, we find most of the time they're talking about something that happened where they used to live, and they transfer that to law enforcement locally, and some of the issues they may have had just don't, by and large, are not the same law enforcement here as they're.
Well, Sheriff, let's get back to you on that. And Garrett, let's talk a little bit about what Sheriff was talking about, how local, these things are. They're not, this is not firefighters are, as we think of one large sort of sector, but they're individual departments, and how important, say, culture is in that department, and kind of give us a sense of like what it's like working with Bloomington and what makes somebody fit into that culture, and maybe make a firefighter that would not fit into that culture.
Yeah, again, I keep hitting on the sense of service, the sense of community. I can tell you that I just served on the interview panel for a recent hiring process, and that was something we really look for with our interviewees is with their answers and just the way they looked at Bloomington. We want that sense of community and that sense of service, because that's what really makes a good firefighter. It's the guy that's gonna go out and say hey to the kids while we're out shopping for our meals in the local grocery store. And there's a tradition, and there's a expectation that I think the general public has how a firefighter is going to conduct themselves, and how friendly a firefighter is supposed to be. So that's what we really need. So in a sense, in the same token, like a person that wouldn't fit is that a person that doesn't have a need to serve, or doesn't have a certain level of respect for all kinds of people, because we run the whole gamut on people that we come across and people that need our help, and you gotta have a certain amount of respect, a level of respect for all those that we come across and help out.
One thing I've heard a little bit is the word investigate, and I will start with you, Garrett, but what kind of methods do you have on these investigations that you sort, because it's a lot of what you're doing sometimes you get a long investigation, and sometimes if you have a very short time to sort of investigate, and give our audience a little sense of those methods you use.
Right. So as far as an investigation, every single call that we go on has a certain level of investigation where you want to find out what the root cause of the problem is, and what the best steps would be. More serious investigations, for example, if it's a larger fire, maybe a commercial building, or if someone if someone passes away as a result of the fire accident, then things like organizations like the state fire marshal will be called in automatically to investigate, and sometimes that does take a little bit longer, and that's more lengthy of an investigation. But just a standard room and contents kind of fire here, everything gets investigated, so we do have that answer. Is that this was, for example, caused from an extension cord or faulty equipment in the garage and things like that. And then every report that we have and that we filled out is, of course, computer generated, but sent to a national fire database, and that's all compiled, and that's where you can find different patterns of behavior, and therefore educate folks on fire safety and what not to do to eliminate those issues in the future.
So last month, if I was talking to Tom Pagola, that there was the worst residential fire here in quite some time on the south side of town. What goes in investigating something like that sort of residential fire? Is that a pretty quick process?
So any fire, no matter the size, you look at the whole picture and then try to pinpoint where the starting point or where the seat of that fire was. There's different tips and techniques on evaluating burn patterns and the type of material that was burned and things like that. But every single fire, no matter the size, has a point of origin. So I think there was maybe 5 homes that were involved or damaged, but all that started at one single point of origin. So that's pretty much it. No matter the size of the fire, you got to find that point of origin, and then you work out from there.
So I don't know, Sheriff Swain, Allison, you you there want to talk about a little bit of some of the investigative techniques you use, whether that's sort of short term or long term. I know. Allison, you talked about some of the flooding in individual houses you go to. Anything that you need to do as far as your investigation skills?
Well, not necessarily investigation skills, but we are constantly pushing the preparedness piece out to our residents, making sure that people have smoke alarms, making sure people have a to-go kit ready in case there's a tornado, making sure that they have at least a 14-day supply of medicine always on hand if possible, and dog food and pet food, and those kind of things. And so we are constantly pushing out that information to the public, just to making sure that each individual has enough items to help take care of themselves in a disaster, at least for those first 72 hours. And then we also send out weather alerts. And so we have an alert system here in our county, mass notification system, and we use that for health orders that need to be updated in regards to the pandemic. We also use that for weather warning and notifications as to floodings happening. You can actually choose, there's an array of multiple different possibilities of weather related events. And so you can select as many or as little as you would wish to receive. And you can get those via a phone call to your home phone, or a cell phone text, or an email, whatever, or as many or little as you would wish to have. And so we are constantly sending out notifications to people to let them know when things are in fact not on a normal, beautiful, blue, sunny day.
And how's that evolved, that in the last few years, as far as that preparedness? Has that as far as whether that's educating the public a little bit more or even the alert system?
Yeah. So one of the initiatives that I took when I started here was really focusing on preparedness in our county and making sure that people know exactly what could potentially happen here and how we can, of course, handle it. But then also making sure that people were prepared themselves. And so we took a huge focus on that. And so we send out press releases. We work at our local fairs and festivals and such to always try to get more people signed up for our mass notification system, and then as well just handing out literature and information on the best ways to be prepared.
Great. Sheriff Swain, are you there?
I am.
We go back to that investigation and sort of the methods you use, both in like very short period of time and then sort of the longer ones, and you give us our audience a sense of that, because I think that sort of, I don't know if it's a sixth sense or how it works, but I think a lot of it is in just investigating either reactions very quickly to get a sense of the situation, or maybe longer cases.
Right. When a deputy arrives at a scene, first thing they're going to try and do is, of course, render aid, but then to determine what happened, what witnesses need to remain, identify them, and get a good sense of what took place, if there's a threat to the community, and then whether or not they need detectives to come to a particular scene. And our patrol deputies have to follow up on a lot of the more minor cases. We don't just send every case into the investigation division that needs follow-up. So our deputies in the field have to do some of their own investigations. Of course, with our investigators, our detectives have the whole gamut of using the state police lab, working with the coroner if there's a death case, and just keeping up on all the investigative tools. Case may take several months or even years to resolve. And on top of that, you have to balance out people's constitutional rights as you are working your way through an investigation. So you don't create problems with that case or violate someone's civil rights.
So we're wrapping things up. I'll start with Garrett. Anything else that you want to give that you haven't talked about with your profession that our audience of interested students in public safety would want to hear?
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to hit on is the fact that we've had tremendous advances in firefighter safety, especially since the 80s. Our gear is better. Our fire trucks that we respond on are safer. And there's more of a sense of, there's more of a cancer mitigation. That's a huge issue with firefighters. But having said that, fires nowadays, with the type of furniture people have in their homes, a lot of things are built with plastics. Fires burn hotter and faster than they used to a long time ago. So with building construction and the way furniture and the things that are inside your home are made, fires are a lot more dangerous. So and burn a lot faster. So that's always something that that comes up is, you know, how are fires different from the way it used to be a long time ago. Fires are definitely different and burn a lot hotter and a lot faster. So the techniques and safety that we apply now is a lot more advanced than it used to be. So there's no more riding on the back of the tailgate, the tailboard on the fire truck, and there's no more going into fires without breathing apparatus and mask on. So that's absolutely mandatory nowadays. And you might not see that sometimes in the movies, but yeah, thank you.
Hey, but one other thing I want to ask each of you too. What you are public servants. What are you most proud of as an award-winning firefighter? And I'll ask the rest of the panel as well, because I think this is one thing that makes the job that we've heard it's so worth it.
One of my favorite parts about being a firefighter is that tradition of just being a community friend, and kids are welcome to come in anytime. Now things are a little different with COVID.
All right, I think we had Garrett Freeze on us. Are you there, Garrett? Allison, are you there?
I am.
Let's do that. You're both what you haven't been able to talk about in your position, and then of course what you're proudest of as a public servant.
Sure. I guess I want to say that the emergency management field is really up and just really becoming more enhanced. It's definitely something where we have a lot more interaction with this office and our public safety and our partners, such as Red Cross, Salvation Army, faith-based organizations, Boys and Girls Clubs, amateur radio communications, dispatch. It's a never ending how many partners that we get to participate and collaborate with. And it's a program that's been around for many, many years, but it's evolved and it's just different now. And it's definitely on the forefront. There are now programs at many colleges and tech colleges as well that offer, as well as universities, and now offer the Homeland Security and the emergency management field as a program that you can apply for. And that's something that's fairly new and exciting for this position. And I just think if it's something that a high school student would be interested in, it's definitely something that they should look into. And of course, if there would be any additional questions, I would be more than happy for a local student to answer any in-depth questions that they have about the position.
Great. And Garrett, I just wanted you to finish off because you were talking about that sort of that person in the community. If you have anything else you want to finish up as you were getting your connection was getting a little fuzzy.
Yeah, excuse me. So I think firefighters do. We have a sense of pride in the fact that kids are always welcome. Our family members are always welcome to come share a meal with us while we're on shift, because we're away from home for 24 hours at a time. But also the fact that there's that sense of camaraderie between, it's a real brotherhood, sisterhood kind of deal. And that's what you expect. We also take pride in the fact that anytime someone calls the fire department, people call us on their worst day and they expect us to, solve their problems. So there's a lot of pride that we take in that as well.
Great. And Sheriff Swain, any final thoughts you want to for the students and the most rewarding thing about your position, you would say?
Sure. I could say to the student that if you want a career in law enforcement, to make sound decisions through your younger life, so you don't have to explain why you did certain things when you apply. If a person is of a good quality character, you can get a job wherever you want in law enforcement in the next few years. It is a calling, however. It's not just a job. If you don't have that feel or that desire to answer a calling in life, to be a teacher or a public safety officer, then find something else to do. But if there's a need to serve, you are appreciated and needed. One of the things I'm most proud of since I've been sheriff is that I am always getting phone calls from the public to compliment on how my deputies treated them and the way they seem to be down to earth. I'm always getting calls from people about how glad they were to have an interaction with one of my deputies. And recently there was an attempt to do a major annexation by the city of Bloomington. And a lot of people said that they were very happy with the service they got from the sheriff's office and were resisting against being annexed because they were very happy with the services they were receiving.
Well, great. Thank
And
you.
I appreciate you having us on.
Oh, I appreciate all your time. It was a fun 45 minutes, and we'll catch everybody here at the Success School next time.